play at the last minute, right?
Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, May 8th, 2014. If we could all rise and say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, your keys.
There we go. Okay, we'll begin the meeting with approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve regular session minutes of April 17th, 2014, as well as acceptance of warrants number 45V14 and 44P14.
So, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Hi, Mary Beth.
Hello, how are you guys?
Hello, very good.
So what's going on at the school? This week and next week are AP tests, so that's pretty much engulfing my entire life. The ones that have been offered at the school are that are already gone: Spanish, Calc. Today was English. Tuesday we have government, and then I think that's the last one that's being offered at the school. So a lot of students are doing that. A lot of seniors. Starting to wind down. The middle school, their chorus, they're going to Six Flags tomorrow. It's chorus and band, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're going tomorrow. High school is going to Six Flags on Friday, next Friday. Speaking of the AP test, we just found out today, our proctor told us that 97% of Georgetown students last year got a 3 or higher on the AP test.
Yeah.
And that put us really high up for Massachusetts and the whole nation, I think. So pretty exciting.
Yeah.
For sports, lacrosse.
Pressure on you, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Keep up the stamina.
Lacrosse teams haven't been doing so hot, but that's all right.
But they're having fun.
Yeah, they're having fun. So yeah, I think that's about it.
How's the baseball
DECA.
team?
Oh,
How's
yeah,
the
DECA.
baseball
I was
team?
gonna talk about DECA.
Before we go to DECA, can I just, how is the baseball team this year?
Not really sure.
You don't know?
No, I
I
should do
I
more
think they're around
up-to-date.
500. I went
They're
to the
okay?
game the other day.
They haven't had an opportunity
They're
to go.
working hard.
They're working hard.
Yeah. It's finally, they get some spring weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor guys have been so mushy and yucky. But I actually had run off some information that Mrs. Ryer had sent along. As you know, they went to the Nationals in Atlanta. She said the students were represented Georgetown well. Additionally, 2 students medaled and 1 received an international trophy, which was the first time ever for Georgetown. She said they were called up on a giant stage in the Georgia Dome, and all of their teachers should take pride in their accomplishments. And then she had written this to the GMHS staff. She said there were 17,000 students there from all over the U.S., Canada, China, Guam, Puerto Rico, and Europe. There were 48 events, each with a first, second, or third place overall, and 144 trophies in all. A huge accomplishment to earn even one. So then she said Ryan Bahar, who you all know because he's been a rep here, earned a top 10 medal for his tests that he did in restaurant and food service management. That must have been the area he was specializing in. This is national now, top 10.
Top 10 of the country.
Michael Kelly earned a top 10 medal for his test in Principles of Finance.
Oh.
Michael also earned a top 10 medal for his role play, because that's one of the things they can do as well in Principles of Finance. Michael was a top 20 finalist in the. I'll show the photo. She says T-shirt photo for our first ever. And then in big bold print, she writes, at the Grand Awards, Michael won a second place trophy for his overall score in this category.
So second
First
in the
ever,
nation.
second in the nation.
Oh, my
Amazing.
So I'll send the pictures around so you can see them, but congratulations to everyone in DECA, but in particular to Ryan and Michael for their great success. Very exciting.
Yeah, I know. It's great. I feel like Georgetown every single day is just getting a little bit better, you know?
Good, that's good to hear.
Oh, that's great.
Peter, was there anything more about the advanced placement, any other details? Like, I know that we were ranked, within the state as well as the area.
Globe North did it by section of the version of Globe North that you get.
Mm-hmm.
So the one that we got, we were number one.
Ooh, number one.
By far, but I also looked at another one that was closer to Boston, and we were we were number one there too. And what they were measuring is the combined kids that took the class, that took the test, that got a 3 or better. So our percentage was, I think it was 97.5.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that's
Amazing.
fantastic. It is.
Yes, that's excellent.
It is quite an
Something to feature. Something to feature.
Capitalize on that.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
This isn't your last meeting.
No,
We'll have-
the next meeting's my last.
Okay, so how many more days for the seniors?
I think it's 21 right now.
You think? I'm sure you know.
Pretty sure it's 21. But yeah.
That's
The
good.
prom, by the way, was lovely.
Oh, yep.
Yep.
Prom was nice.
Prom was really nice.
Yeah.
It was at the Georgetown Club.
Mhm.
Everybody looked great, and it was
Thank you.
very, very calm and orderly, and
Yeah, it was
the
nice.
photo booth was very big. All the chaperones, all the teacher chaperones
All the teachers
squeezed
got it.
in.
Yeah.
The kids were like looking at us all coming out, like, how are they all fitting in that little booth? But we do that every year. That's a tradition. So it was fun. It was
That's
really
good.
fun.
Oh, good.
Oh, everything went really well.
It's winding down. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone here from the public that would like to talk about any agenda items?
Other than if you're on the agenda. Not you yet, Lindsay.
Okay, but I think we are ready
Yeah.
for Lindsay now.
Yeah, come on up, John. You can come too. That committee. Chair, Peter, come on up. Yeah, just grab a chair and pull it up.
Thank you for coming.
Yep, thank you. All right.
I don't know if you know John Perry in our
I
office
don't
as
think
well.
we've met John.
Yep,
Hi,
we've spoken on the phone, I
So,
think.
yes.
So we
He's
just,
one of the
um,
project
Nice to meet you.
managers.
nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so I'm trying to think, we had a couple things we were gonna talk about tonight, right? One of them, was there any news, on the soil testing that was done on the hill?
The
The
geotechnical.
geotech?
We got a quick update today from the geotech. John, do you wanna?
Yep, so they completed the additional boring program on the top of the hill. They did 3 borings, and they found conditions that were not consistent with the first round of borings that they had done. The reason that we went back and did more in the first place was that when we did our test pits, we did not find any ledge or bedrock. And the borings by our geotechnical consultant did find ledge or bedrock, which would have large implications on the design of that wall there. And also we got record plans from the architectural drawings for the actual school from
The original's 1960s.
years ago, from the
Years ago.
60s.
Oh, from the original land?
And that showed that there was ledge quite high. So that would also have an implication on the retaining wall there. So we need to do a little bit more testing, because the test pits, the original borings and the drawings from the architect were a little bit inconsistent with each other. So they actually found that there is not ledge in that area of the wall. So the architectural drawings from the 60s are seem to be a little bit inaccurate, but it confirms what we found in our test pits, and the geotechnical engineers think that what they found originally was probably just some large boulders that they hit, and they thought that that was bedrock. So that's good news, because
I was gonna say, what does that mean?
yeah, so that's good news because it makes it a lot easier to construct.
Does it mean we don't need the cantilever?
Well,
Retaining
the
wall? I mean,
we-
that's how, the only thing I know is the cantilever was the more expensive option.
Yep.
We were thinking it was gonna force us to go there.
We've since have done a rendition that kind of squeezes the field limits in a little bit, getting it out of that slope a little bit. We're able to get it away from the building in the
Is that the
traveled way.
plan B?
So that's the
It
same.
might be helpful to show them the
Yeah,
plan.
we
Plan.
have them, yeah, sure.
we have that.
Just as sort of a background, the original plan, when I was here a month or 2 months, a month and a half ago now, the original plan you saw, the intent of that plan was to have a a certain type of wall, a modular block wall, used as a retaining wall. And this was prior to the additional testing that had been, that we just summarized. And the assumptions that we had to make prior to that testing is sort of went into the preliminary design of the modular block wall. Further into the design, based on the borings that we just discussed, the ones we did originally, and then also the ones from your plans from the 60s, the type of soils that are there are what they consider cohesionless soils. And so the design requirements for the wall were a bit different based on the assumptions we had to make from those borings. So that made design of a modular block wall very difficult, and it would have to go basically extend to your building. You would have to fill right from the retaining wall all the way back to your existing high school building, and there would be a lot of earthwork. It would be very expensive. So we went through several iterations of a retaining wall design. The one that ended up being more designable and constructible was a cast-in-place concrete cantilever wall with certain restrictions and design elements that made it a very costly wall.
Right.
So that we started looking at other options and realized we really needed to do the additional testing, so we weren't making assumptions based on various boring data. And so that testing was completed for that reason, and in the meantime we've tried to modify the wall so it's within the budget and is more constructible.
Okay, so can I just ask one clarifying question
Sure.
on that? So, so we were waiting for that testing to determine whether or not the Plan A, the original design, could go as it was planned. Because remember, if it went a certain way, we were gonna have to go with this cantilever thing.
Several elements, that being one of them.
Okay.
Right.
So, given the new information from the pits that you just did, the test, it still sounds like there needs to be a modification in the wall, that the original Plan A will not fit into the budget.
It would be very expensive, right? That's right,
Okay.
the original
I
plan.
think it's important
Right.
to note that even before we started talking about a cantilevered poured in place wall, the project was already over budget.
Yeah,
Right,
we knew
right.
that.
So I think that was kind of a jumping off point for the committee to say, look, we've been pulling things out of this project from the get-go.
Yeah.
And now we found something that might even cost us more money.
Right.
I think we need to start looking at a little bit more drastic alternatives. I don't know, it's probably not a good word, but rather than just pulling things out, pulling out lights or pulling out seating, we have to start looking at how can we get what we need, get what we want, but maybe we have to constrain this a little bit more. And this is the original. This is the original one. I just want to show you the difference, and it's going to be hard to see because it's honestly zoomed out a little bit. But where Lindsay was talking about was this is the building corners here, and there's the route for the trash trucks, and that's really kind of the pinch point of the whole thing, and that's where the issue of the cantilever wall kind of came into place, and you can see how close that is to the corner of the wall. I'll highlight that wall.
So that's like the dumpster?
So, yeah, that's right,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the back entrance is the locker room and the cafeteria.
So that's the edge of the wall, the building.
The original intent was
There.
to put the retaining wall right along the other side of that access road where the slope starts coming off. So
Yeah.
that's where the additional borings were
And what made
completed
it
as well.
difficult was, if you think of, you can't excavate right up to the footings of the building, you'll undermine the whole thing. So you need to, you can't go down
We
at
don't want-
90,
Got
so you have to come down
got
to 45-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
And also with the signal block walls, the fill behind that needs to go at a 45-degree angle. And those two are overlapping the wrong way, essentially. You want them spaced out. You want the wall 45 here and the building 45 here. Those were like
Okay.
this. So it made it kind of impossible to actually do the excavation to install a wall. And that's part of the reason why we did some more testing as well. Part of the reason was if we did more testing, those angles could change. The 45-degree angles could change based on the soil conditions. But more importantly, it was to do what they call as a global analysis of the wall and the school and everything, basically. to make sure the whole thing doesn't just kick out in the end. Even if you can construct it with those 45-degree angles, there's still a potential that the pressures from the building could just kick the whole thing out. So that's why we did some more testing as well.
And the information, the data they would need to be able to, a geotechnical engineer, to be able to put this all in and do that global stability analysis is what he needed to do the testing in those locations for.
And the thing that really constrained us was the proximity to the building corners. And obviously the more we go into that slope, the higher the wall is and the more earthwork you need to perform, the more you're cutting away from that slope, whether it's a cantilever, poured-in-place wall, or a segmental block wall, or whatever it is. And that was really causing a lot of the cost to be up above the budget. Forgetting about the cantilever or the cast in place or the segmental block wall. There's a lot of earthwork and just the sheer height and the construction constraints. So what we've done is probably, by comparison, hopefully you can kind of get a sense for, and I'll highlight that again, edge of the wall, edge of the building. So. And by looking at that one.
And this picture that
Could
he's
you
showing you is here in your packet.
Could you approximately,
Yeah, maybe.
can you approximately just eyeball the scale and tell them the difference in feet, how far you're moving it?
Yeah, we would know that.
Originally, the wall was 12 to 13 feet off from the building, so right at the edge of the access track. And now, from the building corner that's most north, John can point, yeah, that building corner, the wall's about 26 feet, and then from the southern building corner, the wall, that one, the wall is about 34 feet
35.
off from the building.
So we moved it about 13 to 14 feet from the slope.
Right.
So that does a couple of things for us. It gets us away from the foundation of the existing building, making it much more buildable from the logistics point and from the cost point. And since we're not going so much into that slope, we're not taking all that soil out, there's less earthwork, there's less moving it around the site, and we have to hold less of that back, so the wall is actually shorter. So the second part of the geotechnical analysis, which is the global stability analysis, is still in progress, but it looks like we're going to be able to use just the segmental block walls there instead of the cantilever.
The only unfortunate news with what we've heard so far of the results is that they don't think that the soils are any different, so that the cohesion list changes, so that angle can go less, so that the excavation doesn't affect the building as much, which we were hoping for, that could give us a little more room towards the building. So we have to
To put it
maintain
back.
that, right, to put it back, right. So we have to maintain that sort of angle of excavation.
So that's where we're at. So essentially, yeah, we moved that in. It reduced the cost of the wall, the height of the wall, and we've shifted this towards the wetlands a little
Right.
bit in order to
So
make the geometry work. a little better.
obviously you can see the rectangle of the football field, and we're showing just football and soccer on that plan. So obviously it's very tight around that, and there's no other way to bring it down or move it to still maintain that rectangle and the sizes that you need. If you look at the original plan, we had built-in walkways along the retaining wall.
Yeah,
Can I just see both of those together so we
Yeah.
can compare a little bit?
it's a little tough, I know,
Can I try to
black
point
and
this out
white
a little
and
bit?
the scale.
So this was the original plan, so the wall was right along the road as close as possible and pushed back into the slope a lot. And that gave us room to have the field size that we need, as well as provide walkways along the field on the inside, paved pathways. We had dugouts here and small seating areas at the field level around the field. So because we pushed the retaining wall in towards the field more, we still need to maintain our field sizes. You don't want to pay for this turf field that you don't have at least minimal or adequate sizes to play on. But that means we lost that space we had tried to squeeze in this plan that gave us the walkway around the field at the lower level and access, to the back of the baseball that way. So now your access onto the field is from the parking lot and onto the field directly. Otherwise, you're up above, looking over from the area here. So there's no route on the field level inside of that wall around the field.
Unless you walk on the turf.
unless you walk on the turf, right?
We got rid of the seating that was there, right?
Right, that
There was some,
since there's no access to them, there's also
there were
no
a couple of little portable,
50-person seating for baseball.
And can the new plan accommodate a varsity baseball field, or is that a junior varsity?
It can accommodate, basically, the requirements are that, in left field, the center field has to be 350 feet, left field and right field need to be 300 feet. Your left field foul pole here is 320, which is fine. Your center field, I believe, just makes your 350, and your, right foul pole is 295, so it's very close, it's no less than what you have today. But it's,
those are recommended, they're not,
right, those are recommended minimums for
they're not
baseball.
set.
So this plan, Pam, the Plan B,
Yes.
actually makes the baseball dimensions better.
Oh.
But what it doesn't do, it doesn't, the safety, what do you call them, the
Yeah,
safety
so they,
zones or something?
safety runouts, so it's
Yeah, safety.
beyond your playable lines. The Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association recommends a distance so that there's room for a player running off or doing a corner kick or anything outside the limits of play, mostly for safety reasons. They recommend 10 to 12 feet. Typically, we provide 10 feet a lot of times around the field. And for football in this plan, because of the length of football, you are pinched at this corner. It's about 6 feet to where the 4-foot fence begins. And soccer is okay because you could bring the length in a little bit. To have your minimum lacrosse dimensions, you're a little bit longer than soccer, so runouts in those corners are just short of the 10 feet as well. So there's a couple pinch points there. It's ideal to have the 10 feet. There are some facilities that don't get that. A lot of times on the inside of a track, they can't fit that run out in there as well. But it's something that you should be aware of as an owner.
But you can play regulation lacrosse on that.
You can play, yes, at the very minimum dimensions, and soccer, right.
Okay.
So most of them are at the minimum dimensions just because of the size of the site you have.
Right.
So you're not
It's not spacious.
hosting any world-class events with the most, widest girls lacrosse field you'd like to have, but.
And what does this generally do to the cost picture?
Yeah, so this is actually the first estimate that has come in just under the budget of the construction budget of the project. So
Oh.
this one is actually within the constructible budget.
I think with,
Actually, I think we put the proposed.
Yeah.
So there are certain
It
things that,
was a lot of numbers.
like we said, from the very original cost estimate back in December, I believe. From then on, we started trying to pull things out of the plan to meet the budget. And so there's things that are highlighted in that plan that are still assumed that can be obtained in other means by maybe demolition being done by the town or the highway department, or soccer goals or something like that being provided later or fundraised for. So there are certain things that may be highlighted that you'll see that are something we're assuming are not in the contract right now. And then there are certain items, what we call below the line, that you'll see that are considered, at one of our meetings, alternates were selected. So when this does go out to bid, they won't be the part of the base bid, but they'll be options that you have pricing for from the contractor to award consecutively if you'd like to do that. And so part of those alternates are two lighting fixtures for 2 of the lighting poles at the baseball infield. Another one is a transportable seating, spectator seating. And the third, I believe, is the portable pitcher's mound.
Yeah, portable.
So those are pulled out so that your base bid ideally wouldn't put you over the budget if it comes in, but those are still things that can be adjusted.
Just so you guys have the information, 2 things before we go a little bit further on. So on these safety runouts, we confirmed with them at the last stack meeting before tonight that those safety runouts are recommendations, they're not standards. And correct me if I'm saying anything incorrect, and that as such, the liability issue is negligible to the town for those conditions. They're not so much.
Thank you, Ron.
The other is, I think it's about $93,000 that are the ad alternates and the items that have been taken out. That gives you a frame of reference for what still needs to be done in the whole picture.
In the future, yeah. The other thing that we're still trying to figure out a little bit is, you know, when taking the walkways out, you run into some ADA questions, right? Because at least when you have the little walkways, you know, somebody in a wheelchair, for example, would have the ability to really access the field just as any abled person would.
Right.
So, because we no longer can put that, path in, one of the things that had to go, at least in this round, was the seating that was planned to be on the hill. Because that wasn't there some,
We had never proposed seating on the hill,
There was
but
the
okay,
stairs.
I know you have
what am I
some there.
thinking, that's stairs.
They had stairs to the ramp, and therefore you had to have the ramp, so
Okay.
those stairs are gone,
Right,
so you don't
so,
need the
so in
ramp.
order to not run into an ADA issue, you have to make sure that the whole site is as accessible to disabled people as able people. So we have had to pay attention to that, but that was a question we had at the stack meeting, was can we have some assurance that we're not gonna be in a situation where we put this field in, and then we get a complaint from someone, you know, and then all of a sudden we have to come up with $250,000 to put a handicap path in and all of that. You know, I do think that we kind of agreed at the stack meeting that there's probably a phase 2 of this project that does look at really making every part of it handicap accessible and making sure there's appropriate seating where it's appropriate to put it, but we can't do that in this round.
Agreed.
What?
So there was a phase 2 agreement?
Well, no, it wasn't an agreement, we talked
Oh.
about that
Yeah,
last
we-
night, that
yeah.
there- we,
Oh,
if we
okay.
wanted
The
to
other
do
night.
some of those other things, we would have to go after
Okay,
additional
okay.
money for them.
Fundraising, yeah.
Remember, I asked the question, does this
Misunderstood.
design allow for you to do that? Because I have a suspicion that once the field is in and it's used, that people are maybe gonna start saying, well, gee,
Right, we
where's the
need this,
seating, we need this, we
right.
need that. So I just wanted to make sure there was the opportunity to do that, and we were assured
I-
that there was.
If I can just elaborate on the ADA, the
Yeah,
accessibility
great.
part. The sidewalk was provided basically to get folks to the small 50-person spectator seating behind the baseball. And then also, there are dugouts built into the, originally were dugouts, that's right. So there's baseball dugouts here, and then there's seating also here in the along
Yeah,
the
that's what I
dugouts.
was thinking was the
Yeah,
seating.
so it could get people an accessible route to those facilities. And in the new plan, we had to push out those facilities, so now you still have dugouts, and they're just not accessible from behind them. The wall is right behind them, so you're at a different level if you're behind those.
They're accessible from the field.
Everything is accessible from the field, so the key is that synthetic turf field is actually considered an accessible surface. So, the dugouts would have to be are accessible by means of the field. There's no longer seating there, so there's no need for an accessible route to
That's
those.
what I was trying to
But
say.
the field is accessible because it's a surface that's accessible. And we've provided handicapped accessible parking spaces in the existing parking lot that's going to be renovated, which makes the facility itself handicap accessible.
And is there an option to add seating at a later time?
In this plan, what I was telling Carol when she asked the other day was, they talked about some rework of the slope and be able to put bleachers up in the slope. So I think there'd be two things to consider with that. If you were trying to do just a portable type of bleacher on a pad or something like that, you would have to do a lot of earthwork in the slope to be able to get that in there.
To put them back in where they were, though,
Right,
to put them back in.
at the field level.
at field level would be pretty tough because you still have that retaining wall
Right.
in that same location, it's just a
Yeah.
little lower now. You'd have to go back and take some of the blocks out
Sure.
and then kind of cut back into the slope later,
So,
build that back
so
up.
I'm assuming there are spectators who will go to these baseball games. Where will they be situated? Where will they go? Is there room for
We
spectators?
imagined where they would put their chairs.
We haven't provided an actual spectator seating facility because to meet the dimensional constraints on the field, there's really no place to put them unless you have
So that's
portables.
my question,
Didn't we
though.
talk about
But
on the
not
third baseline?
Facilities.
So
just
a
place.
portable the transportable bleachers that are considered an alternate right now, those can be wheeled out onto the turf and can stay on the turf as long as you'd like to have them.
So, in other words, if you have a baseball game going on,
Right.
you're gonna put those bleachers where the football field is now?
So there's,
Oh, 'cause
That's part of the
they-
playing
Right.
field. Where's it?
Yeah, you could either put them on the left field line or you
you'd
could
have to put them
way out
in,
center
they're
field.
not in good locations.
And a lot of people watch from above. They
Yeah.
watch from up
To-
top.
That's where most
We watch
people.
now.
To
Just we
answer
go
your
from above.
question, they would have to be put on the outside of the foul lines, which is still the field of play within a certain zone.
Yeah.
Right.
But they would be outside of the foul lines, cause that's just the only
Yeah,
space.
Right.
Foul line comes up.
So I would say for the,
Again, we don't have the transportable, that's one of the alternates.
I understand,
So,
but,
we
but,
have
but
a
I
couple of our
also,
own
what my,
bleachers now.
I guess, because I don't know the sites, I haven't been over there, I'm not familiar
Mhm.
with it. But I am imagining we get this beautiful field installed and somebody's kid, a lot of people have kids playing a game, and all these people are gonna wanna go to the game. And they're gonna show up at the game, and where are they gonna go? Where are they gonna go? That's,
Well, they're gonna go kind of where they go now.
Right now, they do, I've been to this field many times, and you do, you stand up like Mary
Yeah.
Beth was saying, or you bring your chairs, and you're looking down, it's actually a great location to see
Okay.
it, because you're you're up high, so you're looking down. I
Bring
mean,
your chair, put 'em on the third base.
that's right around
There are
like third
bleachers
base,
up there.
John, is that
Well,
right?
it's actually
Like,
on the first baseline.
it's first baseline, but it's
Yeah.
pretty much right there,
There's
right?
a flat area that
Yeah.
we cleared out when we did a lot of work on that field years ago.
okay,
We carved out a flat area, we walked the bleachers up there every year.
wow.
Yeah, so you get 20 guys and you carry the bleachers up there, and we haven't been moving them back down, so I think they just been
They're still
staying
up
up there.
there.
But it's
Yeah,
a
they're
nice
up
place
there.
to watch the game.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
if they have to cut back into that, we may end up losing that, so, 20 guys, we'll just make that happen all over again, just the same way we made it happen the first time around. And there'll be
Thank you.
bleachers right back up there, right where they are now, and we'll watch games like that. Otherwise, you could put bleachers way out in center field, which isn't ideal, but you can have easy access to them. If a ball bounces into them, it's just a ground rule double, and if it goes in there in the air, they make it a home run. Way out in center, up in that upper corner, in the upper
Talking about
corner
where
of the
the
end
fields
zone.
are, where the stands are now.
So it's gonna be 300 and,
Yeah,
50,
like that's
60
where they
feet
are
away,
now.
which our JV plays there, nobody's hitting it that far for starters. If it rolls out there and it goes in there, fine. The other option with portable is you could have them either on the left or right field line. We'd be able to move those bleachers around, so.
Okay,
Is that
great.
ideal? No.
No, it's not
I
ideal,
tell you
but it's some,
ideal,
I
but
mean, there's
Yeah,
some place
but-
for people to
There's a
go,
place for
because
people.
I'm envisioning
We'll
something
make
that's
it
so
so there's
crammed in.
places for you to go. It's just, are they gonna be the best that they would have been? No, they're not gonna be the best that they
Right.
would have been, but.
Right, well,
We get
we
kinda,
have-
get
we have
railroaded with
constraints,
this
so,
thing,
yeah.
every once in a while.
yeah.
yeah,
Did you find the answer that, to the question that I asked about when you put those bleachers out there?
if you put them in the corner.
Yeah,
I,
for
I,
ADA
I could not,
access?
there's, so your question was basically, would it be acceptable by code to have the accessible route be through, an
Play
area
field.
that's in during play, through a field? And the code that doesn't get that specific, and I didn't get an answer to that yet, so basically, the only answer I do have is that an accessible surface is accessible by means of its slope and its surface stability, and that's what a synthetic turf is considered an accessible surface. So the surface is, but I haven't got
So
an
your
answer.
main
the
for
question
you.
is
code
when
that-
the game is going on. You're saying, like, when someone comes on and
I
they have to go through the field to play.
Yes, I'm concerned that ADA slash code, it is not compliant to, and that was the question to have them answer, that it's not compliant to say, if you're in a wheelchair, your access point is through the field of play to get to the seating.
Hey Lindsay, can you ask me, how much room is there between the wall and the foul line on the right field line?
That's about 30 feet.
Well, if that's the case, there's plenty of room for the stands right there, and nobody would have to go onto the field of play if the access point's out there in right field. I mean, we don't have any more, we have less room than that now on the high school field. If you look where the stands are sitting now, there's way less room than that between the sidewalk and where those stands are sitting on the varsity field.
But the thing, John, though, is what you have today is irrelevant in that this is a new project and it kicks you into just a new series of requirements. So if you can fit it, as he's talking about, like that, and you don't have to access it that way, then that would open up that opportunity for sure.
I don't know that ADA probably wouldn't speak to accessibility during a game. I'm sure that they would agree that it's not good practice, but
Right.
they usually speak to slopes and surfaces specifically in dimensions. So
But don't they also though talk to the safe access route?
Specifically to this, to something like this though, we'd have to look into that further,
Yeah.
but I don't
Well,
know.
you had
if they speak to
mentioned
that
something today
specifically.
that I
Yep.
asked you if you'd follow up on.
Yep, in contacting the access board, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes.
That's still what we're looking to do for that answer, cause that's a really specific one
I
that's
wouldn't
not clear in the
recommend
code.
that you
Right.
have folks walking through
No.
the outfield during a baseball game, clearly.
For sure.
I think that if you were gonna put, seating in the corner out here, here's your handicap parking, and then
Yeah.
there's a gate here, so you wouldn't really have to go through you wouldn't have to come through here and come up, you could just access it right here. Similarly, if you were gonna put some seating here, you'd just come through the little path and come over and.
The other option would be if a lot of times, obviously, a lot of baseball facilities, high school baseball facilities are fenced in by portable fence, often the outfield, just a small outfield fence if it can't be
Right.
permanent. So that would allow you, if you kind of can envision the arc from the center to the two ends of those highlighted lines, where your out of bounds play could be considered. So those areas could be sort of fenced off from the outfield, so then
Yeah, that's
you're not in the
300.
field of play.
That's 300.
So if you carry that, just like you are right there, yeah, anything outside of that would be outside of the field of play. If there was a small pop-up portable fence that you could put out there.
Like on the varsity field, we have those blue
Yeah.
fences around the whole field, you could
Right.
put one of those if you wanna fence off the.
And then your
the
corners,
bleacher area, that
portable
corner
fence.
was and still, that's the furthest point in the field out there, I think.
yeah.
Trying to do something like that. Put a fence up through there, kinda. That is your
Spectator seating.
spectator seating or area, it's a pretty good area.
And people would bring their chairs.
How,
70 feet or so.
how big is that area?
This is, from the corner to where I drew the line there, it's
Yeah.
about 70 feet,
Oh, well.
so it's a pretty good area.
And you probably wouldn't even need to take that much. And you could mess around with that, if it's portable fencing, you could always be
Yeah.
moving that fence how you saw fit, you could round it, you could do anything with those fences, we put them on Pembroke. We have fence that we could put up, take down in 5 minutes before the game starts, you just wheel it in, wheel it out,
Great.
pretty easy.
And then I guess cause your football end zone is out here, but your soccer is out here. So when you're not using them, you can probably just kind of stack them up over here. And you're essentially outside of your football and your soccer, but it'd be definitely far away from soccer and lacrosse and.
Yeah, our plan for the bleachers is to
Right.
actually be onto the baseball diamond.
Second base, basically.
During football, and if there's a lacrosse game, you can just move them right over there and make it, it's not gonna be an issue. Baseball is the only thing that we have an issue with.
Yep.
We
The
can
other
get everything off that
thing I
beautiful
wanted to note, the slope in its current state today is obviously eroding in a lot of areas, and the vegetation is, some of it's somewhat dying or some's overgrown, yeah, so, we'll have to do some grading, behind that wall and that existing slope. So it's gonna be graded to sometimes a 2-to-1 slope and be grassed, whereas now it's mostly dirt or
Like where the
eroded away.
bleachers are,
Can you point?
you're saying?
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry. So obviously this retaining wall has a significant grade change, and then everything from the retaining wall is gonna be sloped back, just like in the slope today, from the retaining wall and up. But it'll be a much cleaner slope and will be seeded at the end of the project so that it may become an area for those who are hanging out up there to sit on or whatnot, but. There's a small open area that's remaining, a little piece of that open area today that kind of extends off beyond the dumpster.
Some like informal steps there, I think people kind of walk down there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and a little portion of that will still be flat. We've tried to let that stay open as much as possible while still grading out the slope, but
You think grass will grow over there?
it would need erosion blankets and a little special attention, but,
What if you,
Yeah.
what if when you were doing that, you took some old granite curbing that maybe Peter has and just laid it into the slopes and horizontal runs to create some seating
yeah, maybe we could
opportunities?
sit
Like
there.
amphitheater type of.
yeah,
Yeah, that'd be a nice.
Kind of, yeah.
yeah. So it's
Do
an
do you
option.
have any stuff like that around, Peter?
I don't know if you remember in the original
Kinda.
design, we had a stepped wall, I think 2 small stepped wall areas, so that made a nice little seating area too.
Yeah.
We just have to be careful in providing, all those are obviously fine, but if it comes to an actual seating area when we're not
You
providing
could call it
accessibility.
erosion control measures, maybe?
right.
Yeah.
Very clever.
I
like that.
Features.
Sounds good.
So it does seem like baseball is the only, problem that we have with, and it's not a problem that can't be overcome. I mean, there's certainly seating. Not ideal,
Right.
but, with football and soccer and lacrosse, it seems fine.
Right, the only other considerations is, like I said, they're the minimum dimensions for the field, which
Yeah.
is what you have out there today. But lacrosse and football each have a couple of those areas where you have the smaller, run-out zones. But-
Just to give you an idea, we don't have any of those run-out areas now, they're running up a hill in the end zone, so when they get 10 feet on that pinch corner, that's gonna seem like an eternity, because literally, if you walk out there, that end zone's going uphill
Thing is,
on
I
that
don't,
corner.
I've been
right
on
up
that
the
field and
wall.
I don't know, I don't see.
You
You know how it goes, it's something
You
that's
don't
right
even
to
notice
the
it, do you?
corner.
So you're
Yeah,
just
it's
used to
like a
looking at it.
tiny
If you
bit
walk
of-
out there in that
Yeah.
front corner,
Paint is like
right
going
by
up
the
the-
line,
Paint is up
yeah,
in the hill,
it's
yeah.
just-
It's not like Rockport, their baseball field,
Their
where they're
baseball field
actually,
goes up a hill, that is.
it's not as bad as that.
No. But ours is going uphill in the end zone right there, so when somebody runs into, if they ran into that very corner, for
Yeah.
instance, they would be going up the hill running
Twisting it.
in that slope.
This is
Yeah.
this is like the old Boston Garden, so you're gonna get this 6-foot corner and it's gonna become a whole field advantage.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
played in hockey rinks where there were posts in the middle of the rink. Believe it, on the ice surface.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That was in, I think that was in Lynn.
Pretty bad.
They had padding around the posts.
Bumper pool.
We
You do not
talked
stand into
about,
those
we talked
posts.
about in that corner, that's where there's the 6 feet, you know, maybe doing some kind of a padding on the, you know, something nice on the fence.
The other thing, just in talking about padding and the runouts, the whole length of the wall, you know, it's against the baseball field, and then it's also in the corners of the rectangular fields. But if you can picture, that wall is going to be sometimes 5, sometimes 6, sometimes 8 or 10 feet high in a couple points. So it's actually higher than you while you're playing. So we thought about, obviously, to try to save money and eliminate some fencing, to have just the wall be the edge of the field, but that kind of is an issue. We'd have to either pad the whole thing or
Yeah.
do something extra there. So we're actually, our detail is a fence within the inside of the wall. So that's,
I'm not sure this is what you're saying. Do you need to provide a guardrail on the top of these walls?
there will be a fence along the top of the walls because of the height of the walls.
I've been trying to nick away at that $105,000 fencing budget for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Every time, like,
Yes,
we
you
gotta
have,
do like
John.
That's
some of this chain link fence
Yeah.
and
You
stuff.
have.
Adds up.
So the hope was that the committee, so now that the next step is too, after the committee looks at this and determines whether or not you can approve the revision, given the explanation. Now it's gonna go to, it's in the process of going to conservation.
When is
You've
that
been,
meeting?
you've been, on the
Next
15th,
Thursday.
next Thursday?
Next
Yeah,
Thursday.
next Thursday. So you've been once, right?
Yep.
And then it was, remember, there was a discussion here at the committee level where we had to talk about approving the money for the peer review, to have the peer review done. Well, that peer review's been done by 3 peer reviewers with specializations, apparently.
Right, one company, 3 reviews.
One company through, and then Lindsay has been working on the answers to the questions that were raised by the peer reviewers.
Any surprises?
No, nothing major, just some time. Obviously, we had the plan revisions on their own and then incorporating some of the minor changes. Nothing major.
Pretty standard.
Pretty straightforward, yeah.
So then, the next meeting of the Conservation Commission is the 15th, right? And then, you know, the hope is that, because now the plan is moving, it's moving more into the wetlands. Remember, they were kind of hoping to have some of the area where we were originally gonna put the seating. Remember, we decided to take the seating out of there, and I think the Concom was kind of hoping that would remain some kind of a grassy area. But this plan, through no fault of ours, you know, it is what it is. You know, if we shifted the way that way it is into the wetlands a little bit more. So we do need to work with the Conservation Commission on that, and so that they're very confident that it's gonna make the site better. So,
And stable,
and stable.
and
yeah.
preserve the life of turtles.
Yes,
the
it's gotta be
turtles.
environmentally friendlier. And, so that, hopefully, I'm hoping that we don't have to go longer than the June meeting. It'd be great if we could solve it at the May meeting. But then what's gonna happen after that is it's gonna need to go out to bid. And our original timeline was that we were hoping to have it, if you remember, constructed by August. That's not gonna happen now. Even in the best case scenario, that's not gonna happen. The good news about that maybe is that if we do it in the fall, which would be our hope to have it in by November, everything ready, is that it might be less expensive. In fact, it will be probably less expensive, right?
Yeah,
In
it
the fall-
oftentimes
in
is
the
if
fall,
it's off-season.
because there's a lot of people putting in fields in the summer, because obviously it's not, it's been always around, so it's much easier to do it. So we're hoping that would be, that'll work to our advantage. But it is gonna require some budgetary adjustment in the athletic budget, because remember, we didn't plan on not having access to that site. So we're kinda discussing that internally now, we're not quite sure what that looks like yet. But
So
there
you're
will-
talking about like having away games, losing the gate fees, things
I mean,
like that.
you might be in that boat. I mean, not that we could play that many games on that field, because it was usually not in good enough condition, but, it wasn't
Like
necessarily.
4 home games, is that what you
Yeah,
lose?
I don't, I'm not sure, last year it was 4 home, but I thought we were home more the year before, so I don't know what the schedule.
Where's the Thanksgiving game this year? Is it down there?
Yeah, Peter, isn't the Thanksgiving game home this year? No.
Again?
It
I thought
isn't,
it was
because
home
it
this
was,
year.
it
was this year.
It was
It was
this
home
year,
this
year.
that's
Yeah,
right,
it was.
because I remember
Senior
thinking,
game.
oh, too bad we couldn't have swapped, because then next year we'd have the turf
Well,
field.
luckily
We
But
talked about
Good thing
that.
we didn't do that.
No, we talked about that, remember, cause
Yes, we
it
did.
rained, it poured, and
Oh, it
we
was
didn't
all-
think
yeah.
the field was gonna be playable.
Exactly, I remember, but we're not gonna have to worry about that too many more years,
Right.
which is really great.
We don't really know how many home games because of that playoff format they have.
Oh, okay.
So Carol, there is, I think we talked to you about the revisions. There was some extra effort on our part to revise the plan. In the interest of time, we obviously went ahead and revised the plans, we revised the notice of intent, and
The
Right, I
conservation
think you had
filing,
chatted with
yeah.
John
revised
about that,
the
yeah.
drainage and a lot of this, some of the detail and things like that. And we did come up with a proposal to cover our time to do that. And we were hoping that the school committee would consider that proposal.
You mean, you get it like an invoice for the work
Well,
you've
it's a
done?
proposal that,
Yeah,
that
it's a proposal, right, yeah.
change order proposal for our services. And I can provide it to you now if you want to discuss it. I brought a couple of copies, not enough for everyone. There was a second part to this as well. We had discussed this with John last week, I believe, that we have exceeded our estimated number of meetings as far as staff meetings and hearings and school committee meetings that we had budgeted for. We exceeded that by a few, and we, obviously in the interest of just kind of pushing the project forward, we don't want to really nickel and dime too much. But there's a sentence in here that going forward, we'd like to, if we're requested to come to a meeting, bill that on a time and expense basis. 'Cause we don't really know how many more coordination meetings and meetings that we might need to come and present to you all. Instead of guessing at that, we would just prefer to just bill that as
As an extra?
yeah, as they come, sort of thing. So, if you want to take this
Do you
and
wanna
consider that, I have an original and I have 2 copies, so you can
Well, I'll give them to Barbie and she can.
have those. And
So I don't know, are there other questions? Or I don't know if the committee feels like they are comfortable, the staff committee recommended bringing this forward and having your approval on this. But we also said if people didn't feel completely comfortable or needed extra questions or something, we didn't have to take a vote tonight. If people are comfortable doing it, obviously, going forward to Concom and saying this is an approved project from the school committee, helps, but it's not essential, I would think. I don't want anybody to feel pressured by it,
Speaking for myself, just to help my other committee members here, being pretty active, involved in this. At this stage of the game, I think everybody is in agreement that this is a less than desirable, than a perfect scenario. But it's a hell of a lot better than what we've got now. And it is what it is. So I'm comfortable, recommending approval of the plan as presented, contingent upon successful verification of compliance with all ADA issues. that's where I am with that. As far as receiving a proposal in the same night, being asked to turn around and recommend it's okay, I would strongly say no, that I would want to read that and understand it and study it first.
So the staff committee has all seen this revised
Mhm.
plan, and they're all in
We
agreement.
met, when did we meet?
Tuesday night.
I know it's hard.
We went over this
Yeah.
Tuesday night, and it was a unanimous vote to recommend
Okay.
this plan to the school committee.
It was a bit more preliminary, that plan, but it's the same concept.
Yeah, it was
Elements we
the
talked
same
about.
concept of what you're looking at here. We had the basic parameters of it and discussed the ADA issues and
Okay.
all of that. So we've basically gone over all of this
Okay, great.
ad nauseam.
This sounds like
In detail, John.
That's the other way of saying it.
I don't get points for politically correctness, I apologize.
This sounds like basically the best we can do with the space that we have, and I just have a question at the end here, this total project cost. $1,765,674.
Never, she's thinking it was 1.2.
Oh,
You have
with
to
the,
explain, yeah, we should.
right, is she looking at the cost, you're looking at the cost estimate, or?
It says
She's
total
looking at
project
this.
cost.
Oh, right, right,
So
so.
it's 1.25 plus 500.
So,
So that's,
500 is the donation from the
Yeah,
GAA.
okay, and that's what we were planning?
That's what they were planning.
Okay, all right, sounds good to me then. Just wanted to check, just wanted to, any
Close.
question I have in my mind, which, okay.
Nobody's watching the dollars and cents more than Pete. Maybe Mark.
Have to be responsible with those dollars and cents.
Right.
So do you actually have like a fee that you're proposing for the meetings?
No, because, so it would be time and expense. So basically, I could say, let's lump in another 5 meetings and charge you a certain lump sum for that, but we don't know that we're gonna go to another 5 meetings, so.
Right.
We would charge if Lindsay comes to a meeting for 4 hours, she'd charge you for 4 hours. If she's here for 6 hours, she'd charge you for 6 hours.
Right,
It's
at a
based
rate-
on
at a
a-
rate,
At
do I
an
know the rate?
hourly rate.
oh, I'm sorry, it's the rate in the package.
It's the rate that would be, I don't know if it's in that package, it goes back to our original contract.
Okay, do you know what it is
Um,
off the top?
I think it's, Lindsay's rate is $120 an hour, and mine in that was probably $150. We bill out a little differently now, but I think that we would clearly honor what is in the contract.
So we have to look at what's in the contract.
Can almost guarantee those are the numbers, 120, 150.
So one thing we could do is if the committee wants to take a vote tonight on the Plan B, and then what we could do is we have another meeting on the 22nd. So people could take a look at this, review the proposal, any questions that you have, we could certainly bring them to, get clarification, and then take a vote on them on the 22nd. That can work for you?
Mhm, sure.
It sounds like that's a better way to go.
Yeah,
with it. It sounds
I
like
think
people-
so, and I guess I'd
So
like
do they
to,
need to come back for the 22nd?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no.
I guess I'd like to take this opportunity, because I won't be on the board after, but.
Are you sure?
This is his final, real.
This is the
final.
real.
I know.
I do have some questions about additional service for revising the documents. I don't have any question about the need to revise the documents. I don't have any questions about the fact that additional information which they now have has forced them to do this. That's not what I question the extent of the charge for the additional service. I want to read this a lot more closely. That's all.
I think we'd all appreciate your comments and your insights, even if you're not at the meeting,
I'll write it down or somehow
and
communicate
somehow
it to
get it,
you. Yeah,
that would.
sure.
And we'll make sure that this proposal gets out to
Yeah.
all the committee
I
members.
won't say much about it, but, because clearly it's up to you all to make the decision, but the way, there's a paragraph in there that kind of explains, I think, how we got to this point generally. And we went through the effort to bring it up to permit level drawings, which is about between the 75 and 90% level. It's quite a bit of detail. Knowing that it was over budget already, having something to do with the retaining wall, but not completely. I think the new information that we have from the borings is really supplementing the design to, we need that even if we started with this, we would have needed that information. So I think everyone was aware that the project as designed was over the budget that we had to work with. But we said, well, let's get it into conservation to get it permitted, and then we'll kind of figure out the rest later. And now we've had to do a little bit of redesign on our end, and that's obviously time and effort to go back before the Conservation Commission. So it's up to you all to make the decision.
That's, you're
I
offering that
didn't-
as an explanation.
Since you offered that, what I would want to respond to that right now would be, the idea of producing drawings that are this far developed, which are required to submit to Conservation Commission, which is schedule driven. It's reasonable to assume that the design professional would make it clear to their client the risks associated with proceeding ahead with the design at that level when they know they don't have all the information they need. So that's where I am with that. So they have to go then they get the information. Again, no one's questioning that the information doesn't require them to make the revisions to the drawing. But I question the lack of communication and part of their responsibility in keeping the people on the committee, the STAC committee and the school committee advised of, you guys go ahead with this level of drawing. We don't have all the information we need. There's a possibility, particularly since this wall and how close it was to the school was such a fundamental key component to this working. I think that's what I'm.
So it sounds to me like there was a sequencing issue is what.
It was a schedule, it
yeah.
was driven by schedule is where that came from.
Driven by the desire to have the field be installed over the summer, is that what you mean when you say schedule?
To be on schedule
Yeah.
with regard to
With the-
where the
yeah.
Conservation Commission submission was gonna be and review was gonna be, because we lost actually a month because they didn't have a quorum. That was one of the problems.
Our actual schedule was that we wanted to have it be under construction
In April,
I
yeah.
remember,
So
yeah.
it would have been April, May, because we want to stay out of the summer months. What really set the project back was the original process of going through, I forget what do they call it, the public bid process, basically to hire the engineer. We lost 6 months in that process
Oh, yeah.
minimum.
Yeah,
And that put us behind the 8 ball right out of the gate. So there was a lot of questions of whether we needed to really go through that process to hire an engineer or not. Regardless, we went through the process, and that,
To make sure,
it actually, Rob stepped up and probably saved the day on it. It was really lost in no man's land, and he got it done. And, but we did lose 6 or 7 months on that and put us behind the schedule right out of the gate. We were still trying to maintain the schedule, and then it didn't go so smooth with conservation the first time.
Right.
Their peer review was slow, shall we say. I guess I'll leave it at slow.
That
Is
works,
how I'm
it
supposed to leave
works.
that, Carol?
Keep going, John, you're doing
Okay.
good.
And so we lost probably
Fine.
another 60 days there, maybe?
Yep.
Lindsay, can you confirm that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so those two.
So, but what I'm
issues
trying to
cost us 8
understand is,
months.
so Lindsay's aware, so Gail is aware of the fact that we're losing time on these things that you have no control over, and the thing that they do have control over is pushing the drawings ahead. And your objection is that they did that knowing that there could then be
Need for revision.
the need for revision.
And it's not really an objection, because when I put myself in their shoes, I totally get it.
Mhm.
And that's why I go like this, because I'm trying to balance it.
Yeah.
But when I think of the wall being the guts of this thing and how close it was to the school, and and whatever, and I remember specifically asking about its proximity to the school. Would there be any problems with this thing cutting out?
Yeah.
At that point in time, people thought no.
Because my recollection is of the passion and the urgency that I felt from the community to get this in. The passion for the project, the urgency, the desire to have it done. And so I could understand, you know, it is, right? You want somebody who might say, you know, but this is crucial information, we need the information from these borings, 'cause before we can say 100% for certain this isn't gonna be a problem.
Sometimes in
But
situations like
sometimes,
this.
yeah, it's really hard to think about all those pieces.
Well, we thought we were gonna be under construction right now. You know, so
Well,
that's the,
I mean, and that's, believe me, I have felt the pressure from the community.
Yeah.
I have felt it, and I'm not even that involved. I'm just sitting here on the school committee. We want this field and we want it yesterday.
Yep.
And so I think people are doing the best they can under difficult situation. But I don't know the industry. It's an industry you're much better acquainted with. So I don't know what the appropriate questions to ask are. And I have to trust the professionals that are hired. But I also understand, like, when human beings are telling you, we want this and we want it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm really frustrated about being held up by this committee and that committee. And so I don't know.
And just the money issue is just so tight now all
Yeah.
the way around for everybody, and so I'm looking at it and wondering about it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
this is not for services you've already done. This is for proposed services going forward?
No, that's for, we've done, like I said before, you know, in the interest of time and
Yeah.
we're trying to push the project forward as well, and we took some risk without having that approved to go ahead and
Okay.
do the redesign that we need to do in order to get into
This is for
Concom.
services rendered,
Correct.
technically.
And that's an honorable thing to do, you know. In a perfect world, would there have been a phone conversation, a series of meetings to get contracts worked out? Yeah, but it doesn't happen that way, and the design team takes it on there, takes the risk, you know, we're gonna go ahead and make this thing happen, and come back and hope we're treated fairly.
Yep.
You know, so that's a good.
Good clarification, thank
Yep.
you.
So we'll leave it up to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Now,
Well,
is the
we'll have an answer.
conservation meeting,
Sounds
is
like
that
a
gonna be
negotiation to me.
covered or no? You're coming next
Yes.
Thursday to the conservation?
Yes, the conservation hearing,
Next Thursday.
yeah.
So is that,
The-
Is
the-
that
part of
within,
the
or
hearings that
is-
are in the contract, is the question.
it sounds like in this, you've already come to an,
The additional meetings that would be billed time and expense,
beginning next
forward.
Thursday.
yes, going forward after tonight, that's what we would request to do, is bill it on time and expense.
Okay, and is it a minimum 4 hours?
No,
No, it's what it is.
No, it is
It's
whatever.
what it
Yeah,
is,
it's-
right, yeah.
Travel time?
Yep, we usually bill for travel time.
Maybe those are some things we can talk about,
Yeah, we'll
You know?
take your feedback.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
How about if we take this up as
Well,
a stack
well, I was
committee
gonna
first
say,
before it
stack
comes back to
usually
you guys,
reviews
so
all
you
of
won't have to
this.
address
Okay.
it, we'll review this
Thank
thoroughly.
you.
That
I think
would be
that's,
helpful.
that's really
Yeah.
helpful.
That would be
Take
good.
her leg and Mark gets his teeth into his leg.
we
How's that for political?
I
Trying
tend
to
to
keep-
think of the
trying to
stack
keep it-
committee being the passionate ones here.
Okay, there was no, at the last TAC meeting, there was no, new meeting date
We
secured.
haven't set anything up yet, no.
Right, so
But
are
you
we
wanna
gonna
have it
wait until
before the
after?
26th.
Well, I'd like
Yeah,
to see
we're
what
gonna
the
wanna
plan
have
is
it, but are we
on
gonna
Concom
wanna
meeting.
have it after Concom?
Yeah, I wanna see what happens at the Concom meeting before we set another date, and then we'll go from there, I think
Yeah.
that's next week.
Are you looking for approval at the Concom meeting? Are you hoping to
Yeah.
get it then?
Yeah, I'm hoping for it, I mean,
Okay.
it's the second meeting, they've had their peer review it, they've answered all the questions at the peer review, so, I mean, I'm hoping for it, but, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say, in the effort of making everyone aware, there's still a portion of the peer review that we haven't received yet,
Received.
I'm sorry, so
Okay.
Well, that might be a little delay.
it's,
So you'd have
And
to.
is that imperative that you receive it prior to the conservation or no?
the intent was that we receive their comments and have them responded to by this hearing, so that they can say, yeah, we're comfortable with what they responded to, but, if we haven't received them, and then if she can't receive our answers, she can't say she's comfortable within this week timeline, it's getting really close to her be able to.
That's why I'm thinking it's
To do
a
that,
two-meeting gig. but
But
that's,
is
but
it-
if you
is
could
there
get,
a
but
way-
if
I
you
mean,
could get
if-
some, if you could get
So-
some.
Right, we
Yeah.
have, right,
we
what
can
we
go
have
some-
answered,
some
we
distance,
have,
right.
right, so.
But given now, okay, that it's on our dime, like,
Mhm.
don't we need to think carefully about if she, if Gail doesn't have all the answers they need to feel confident that the Conservation Committee is gonna come back with an approval, why would we pay for them to go to that meeting, knowing they would have to come to a second meeting? Why would we spend that money? Why not wait until you have all the questions that they're gonna ask, till you have all those answers?
Logic.
I-
My goodness, logic.
I think that's a good question. I think the question isn't on Gail. I think the question goes to the Conservation Commission.
They'll have a stroke if these guys aren't at that meeting.
They will.
I agree.
Just saying.
Even if they don't have all of their stuff ready.
Because there's gonna be nobody there to answer any questions
Well,
that
they
they're
can,
gonna
they can
have at
discuss
that
what
point.
they
I
do
can't
have.
answer the questions
Well,
that
that's the
they're
way I'm
gonna
looking at it,
answer,
they can
so
discuss what they do have.
They're not gonna take that well.
But you're, I mean, I'm just saying, it's
We may not
travel
have
time,
enough
then we
time
have
to get
double
to- we
travel
might have one.
time, so
We gotta have
we're,
somebody there that
we're,
can answer the questions.
Is there
we don't
any-
have enough money for the project as it is, and we're looking at, like, the way the nickels and dimes are falling out here.
You know, I do agree though, somebody needs to be there next Thursday, because.
Doesn't have to
you
be
have-
both
I
of
mean,
you then,
they
just
have the
one of you,
majority
like,
of it.
we
You
need.
have a portion of it that isn't.
Yeah, so the
missing.
reason the last commission hearing was continued was because the agent talked to me and he knew that we hadn't received the comments yet, and he said, well, it doesn't seem that it would be very productive,
Yeah,
so
he told them.
there's no reason. So we actually scheduled a time to sit down and review with,
You know what, Lindsay, it might be worth it to call them and say if they're not completely ready, then we push it off again, so that you guys are only coming back for one more meeting and not two, because the last thing I wanna do is spend all the money in engineering costs when we got construction still to go.
Just do it once again.
Nothing against you, but, that's the way it is.
It's an option.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, at this point,
Someone's gotta kind of light the fire and make sure we get what we need from them before the,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
if we,
How
Your
often does
review,
Concom
can you
meet?
call?
Do they do every?
oh yeah,
other
I've
week?
talked to her, I've talked to them several
Once
times,
a
yeah.
month.
Okay.
We actually met out on site
Once a
last
month.
Friday.
They don't
That was
do
2 days after I asked her to have the comments to me. We were gonna discuss them.
Really?
They weren't completely prepared, so I said, let's go to the site. So we met on the site and went over things, and then she said she would write up her comments and provide them. But I still haven't received them, and she also told me that she was gonna be away some days next week, so that's why it's getting to be a little bit of a push. We have the majority of the comments that I think really are really important comments that will hopefully be satisfied.
we got stormwater comments in writing
And wetlands.
fairly promptly, so we responded to those. The wetlands, Lizzie met on site with
That's
the
why I met on
wetlands
site,
woman
yeah.
last week.
That
and
lady.
She's
we had a-
supposed to write her
We had a
comments.
phone
She's the one you're waiting
conversation
for?
with her, and we're responding to the comments she gave us verbally,
Right, so we're, right.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it may be that if they go to this next meeting, they don't have to go to the one they vote on.
Well,
Because
that
there
could
may
be
be just no more
if there's
information to
just
be
not much
had, and they can
information.
just, either they're passing it or they're not, they're approving it or they're not approving it, and at that point, there's nothing they can do anyway.
But it does
so.
sound like you have a good rapport with them, that, like last time, he said, don't even bother coming.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that
yeah.
they'll tell you.
Right. They will. I mean, it's worth a call
Well,
to
it's
Steve
not
and let him know
because they
what
don't have
exactly the
information.
situation we're
Right.
in. We have a lot of good information, but some we've only received, thoughts on what she thinks we needed to. So it's kind of a little bit up in the air, but
Yeah,
there's some good portion that's done and some that still haven't been received. But
okay. Well, then we can vote on the revised Plan B, and then Stack will look at this, and then.
Yeah.
And then
Great.
come back to the, school committee, hopefully we can get a Stack meeting in.
Yeah, you'd have
that
to,
When's
week,
the next
that
school
short
committee
period of
meeting?
time.
22nd, so
22nd.
so you'd have
Of
to.
May?
Yes.
Yep, so you'd have to,
When's-
2
when's
weeks,
the,
I just
uh,
looked at this. You'd have,
15th, next
15th, so we
Thursday.
need to
you'd have to
meet
do
between-
something the 19th, which is a Monday, the 20th, or the 21st. But remember, we're gonna post it, we have to post it at the end of
Yeah.
that week.
Right, so any
Results
of those days
before.
are fine with me, so
So
you just
19th, 20th, 21st.
you
Okay,
pick a
we
day
can-
that works for you, send that out, and then we can just,
Okay, we'll
we'll
do
start
that.
with that, and any of those days work for me.
Okay.
I have no
Okay.
life.
Until after the field is built.
I think
This is your life.
it's dark out and you can't
Right.
What do you say?
It's 'cause it's dark out and you can't golf.
It's not until 8:30.
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the revised plan for the synthetic turf field at the middle high school as presented.
So moved.
Discussion?
Discussion would be to modify that to include contingent upon satisfactory compliance with ADA.
Okay. Can you just say it that way, do I have to say it again?
No, I
You
would
just say
say,
as amended, with modification.
Who made the
approve.
motion?
Me?
Okay, so you're willing to modify it, okay.
You didn't make the motion, you asked for it.
Oh,
Who made it? I thought Pam made the
Pam.
motion.
I moved.
Are you
So-
okay with
Are you good
Rob's
with that?
addition? If you're willing to make Rob's addition, then
Now, this,
he can amend
That's
it, he
just-
can
Well,
amend it.
it is ADA compliant, isn't it? Because the field itself is accessible and we don't have any places to sit. We don't have any stands. Where, I mean,
Is your
ADA
concern about
compliant
joining the playing
to
fields
what?
still?
They-
To what?
they, the two issues that are outstanding, correct me if I'm wrong, right now, the fields, as they stand designed, they're ADA compliant in and of themselves as you're looking at it. The question of when you bring in seating, where you place it, is that gonna be ADA compliant? And then the second issue is whether or not this project is a standalone project, which I sure as hell hope it is. But there is a question that this is part of the school campus and how you get there, which is not ADA compliant at this point in time. So Pam, I'm not an ADA expert, but I sure as hell wouldn't want this board to not make sure that it is.
How do we get clarification as whether it is standalone or on a campus? Like,
We would,
That's the-
From the
to get a
parking
definitive
lots.
answer, you'd
Yeah.
have to get a rendered opinion from the Architectural Access Board in the state.
And the other way you can do this is that you have this discussion and then you leave it to them to advise you what to do. Unfortunately, I don't know, unfortunately, I've just gotten burnt in the past. And what I don't wanna have happen to the town is have this thing get built and then someone make a complaint, and then the state comes out, and the access board comes out, and they check it, and they go, you guys are not ADA compliant, and you have to become ADA compliant, and then you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to do so. That's what I want to avoid.
So the step of going in front of the architectural board, is there a cost associated with that?
I don't know that definitively. There may be an application. I think the next thing to do is make a phone call to them.
Yeah, I think Rob, I'm in favor, of making sure that whatever we're doing isn't in danger of being shut down once it's completed by the state because of this. And if there's anything else, in addition to ADA, that we're not considering, that anybody is keeping silent on, speak up, please.
And also, this is where they, being the professionals, this is where they do their work.
Yes.
Without necessarily applying a full-blown application, getting it in writing. I'm not necessarily asking for that. But I've yet to hear you say, that yes, on these two instances, you guys are fine, in our opinion. So, that's the crux.
The just tricky thing is that the ADA regulations, I think anyone would agree, are not black and white. A lot of instances in ADA are.
Yeah.
There's a lot that aren't.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it comes down to getting an opinion from either the access board or the local building official.
John look at it, I guess.
He might get involved. That might be the easier, or the quicker, or the cheaper thing to do. Certainly we can render an opinion, but in this case, it's a site on its own, like you said, is a lot easier to determine if
That
a site
plan,
on its
right.
own is ADA accessible.
Right.
The thing that we're dealing with here is that the school, the route from the front entrance of the school down to the field, that exceeds the slope requirements of an accessible route.
We think.
Now the
But
question
what if you
is,
just go down the hill and then around
It's
through
too
the
high of
parking
a
lot?
slope.
the slope is too
steep.
great.
Oh,
But there's a caveat in ADA that says that if your building is separated by a vehicular way to your site, then you might be exempt. So it's,
So that's
It's
our
just, but we
gray. It's
still
just
don't
gray.
have that
And I
definitively
think
said.
you do end up hanging your hat on that one.
Yeah.
I just don't want this board to be the one responsible for taking that responsibility. And if the building inspector is willing to sign off on that, that would be okay. He's more qualified than this board is to make that decision. And if he's not comfortable, then see what happens. But, yeah.
I think the instinct is a good one. I think,
at least you want to know the answer. I think.
absolutely, yeah.
We're not building seating.
Not yet,
Yeah, but it's.
but we might at some point, and
Well, we hope to.
I think the question comes up. You have to consider students coming from the school that aren't driving down to the parking lot to get to the field. And are you exempt because you're grandfathered in, or are you exempt because you have
Winter
a vehicular route and you could come out of the school and drive down there? There's a lot of little caveats in the
Yeah,
regulations.
we should find
I'm
out.
comfortable, yes, with checking with the
We'll
building
call the
inspector.
building inspector
Yeah,
first,
that'd be fine.
Great.
and then
And
we'll
then-
take it from there.
Take it from there and.
Yeah.
The portion of the question, the real element that's in question is a part of it that we're not really touching, and it's just what you have today as a condition. So it's opening up that for them to see, and
Where do you stop?
where do you stop is the other part.
It's one of those things like, it's better to have the information than to pretend you don't want it. and-
Yeah, I think we've gone that route with everything we have dug up with all of these building projects. We've chosen to go on the side of safety and information. And I think
But, yeah.
that's a good, I feel comfortable going that route, and I don't always feel like I'm knowledgeable about what it takes to get there.
Well,
So-
and Pembroke's a good example of
Exactly.
not doing that in the beginning, and it getting caught as the process was well along, and then having to go back and all the additional costs for that.
Absolutely.
That's a perfect example.
Okay, should we restate the motion?
Well, let's see what Pam.
That's a lot of stuff.
Why don't you restate the motion?
Okay.
That's fine. And then do a new one.
What's the building
We're
inspector's
going
name?
on the amendment,
John
and then we'll
Mativier.
motion after that.
What's his name?
John Mativier.
Okay.
It's basically the same motion that you made, and then just adding contingent upon
Right,
compliant.
adding contingent upon, Gale Associates reaching out to Georgetown Building Inspector John Mativier.
Just into ADA
just-
compliance.
I
Okay.
would just say ADA.
Reaching
compliant.
out regarding, ADA compliance.
So moved.
Second, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Great. All right, super.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, John.
Here.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mary. Good night. You're going home to study.
Yep.
Good luck on your
Good luck.
Good
exam.
luck on your exams, Maribel.
Okay, so let's try and move
Yep.
this
Yep,
along.
the rest is pretty quick.
Yes, technology director update.
Oh, yeah, I just wrote a little bit something in your packet. I know you probably were wondering. We put our ad out, we had, and I think we have 16 applicants now. I think we have 2 more. And I was just letting you know that Joan and I actually both reviewed them just because we were curious. And actually I think we saw, 8 or 9 people that we thought were very qualified. So we'll set up interviews, we'll put a little committee together, we'll set up interviews, and we'll go from there. I'll keep you updated, obviously, on it. There were some that we got that, we don't think we're ready, so we're not gonna offer them interviews. There were a couple that were very, almost overqualified that we thought, well, we wanted to figure out a little bit whether or not we're still on the fence about that. But we do have, like I said, 8 or 9 people. We did it independently of each other, and we're both solid that they
Great.
met the qualifications we were looking for, so. We were actually both very happy about that. Great. Yeah,
Good.
so then we'll be putting together the committee and, moving
Okay,
forward on
and
it.
you're looking for someone?
Yeah, Pam had expressed some interest in it. I don't know
Yes,
if anybody
sure,
else
I
is
would-
interested, but,
I would love to be involved.
Okay, that's good.
okay, so that's all I really wanted to let you know on that.
Okay. No school reports. Okay, financial report? We have 2 invoices from Gail. I was hoping when he said invoices that it was the ones we already had. And he mentioned no. Okay, there's no, motion in here, so we have to how we did this. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve, invoice number 1402316 dated March 17th, 2014 from Gale Associates in the amount of $8,632.67 as presented.
So moved?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve invoice number 1403349 dated April 14th, 2014 from Gale Associates in the amount of $3,640.32 as presented. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, subcommittee reports? Do we have any? Has anybody had any meetings?
We had a
Safety
governance-
We had a
did you have
governance?
We had a governance
Oh, good.
meeting prior to our school committee meeting
Oh,
tonight.
good.
And we reviewed the draft of the policy on fingerprinting, which Carol will fill in.
Fill in
and
blanks.
Fill in the blanks, and we'll have it for the committee to review at our next meeting.
Okay.
She's also going to make sure that we have a document that we had, that keeps us up to date on the work of the government
Yeah, Laura,
committee. We
remember
believe
the
we.
grid we put together, like when things are reviewed
Oh,
and
right.
adopted? You
Yeah,
have that,
so we just
right?
wanna make sure that's all up to date.
Yeah.
Our next meeting, we will
I've seen it.
review the next 5 policies in section I, and Maureen will submit the minutes for tonight's meeting.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
She's gonna be happy about that. That was a short meeting.
I was joking.
I'm sure between the 2 of you, you can figure something out.
We will. We're just having a little fun.
Yeah, you could just say that in your minutes. Exactly what you just told us. Okay, that's good, thank you. Safety met today?
Yes, we had a safety meeting this morning, and we discussed the Safe Routes to School program with the Department of Transportation. And we're excited about that because we are eligible to apply for a grant, thanks to the fact that Heidi Monjo has been in touch with them and working with them for over a year.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Heidi. We applied, but Heidi was the one who sort of took it on and said, I'm gonna research this a little.
Oh,
And then
okay.
Margaret did a great job with it too, so.
Right, well, and Margaret is applying now. She's handling the application.
She was trying to say she was hoping to work with other people
Work
on
with other
that.
people. There may be a team,
I
a team
clearly heard
effort.
that
Yes,
message.
okay.
Busy,
Yeah, she's
a
pretty
lot of other
busy.
things.
But
yeah.
we could potentially be awarded $300,000 to $1 million, and the object of this grant is to improve infrastructure in such a way as to increase walking and biking safe routes to school.
So I think Peter wanted us to,
Um,
you remember how people were asking us,
Yeah.
are you part of Safe Routes? Because if they do Elm Street, and they put new
Yes.
sidewalks and things on Elm
we
Street,
could-
that's right where the school's gonna be, so there potentially could be some major
That's
money for the
fabulous.
infrastructure.
Wow,
Right,
That's
so that
fabulous.
can be very exciting.
that is exciting,
And,
a lot of money.
yes.
Yes, but I'm sure it's competitive,
Sure,
too, but.
sure.
Right, right, there's,
But, I
No
think,
guarantee.
That's
we're
okay.
putting our name in because, we have a new school coming in there, when we're doubling the population.
Yeah,
Well, not quite doubling,
absolutely.
but we're adding significantly to the population, and, Elm Street, we want kids to walk and bike to school, so I think there's some opportunity there.
And it has been difficult this week, especially with the work that's being done.
Yes.
I parked there to pick up my kids on that
Mhm.
street, and I feel so bad for the kids that walk, because everything's been dug up, and they really don't know where to walk, and they're walking in the street, and
Yeah.
it isn't the best, situation right now, so.
so that was a
Good.
little bit of, the
Good.
rest of what we also discussed was, all the graduation, all the events that are coming up in
Yeah.
May and June, that we will be expecting quite a few people from from the public to be parking around our schools, and we just wanted to keep the police alerted about all those times and dates and events, and so we can
while you're
coordinate our
saying that,
efforts.
Pam, I should mention to you, because maybe people are watching this. So you know, the election's Monday, and the ballot question is Monday. And so the police are putting a detail up there, actually a couple of officers to help with it, with the management of it. But actually, the teachers and the staff are gonna park, we got permission from Jim Luker. They're gonna park down on the playground, which is covered in grass and wood chips. So there's a road up and around, so they'll be able to park down there for the day, cause it's really just park and no one's wiggling the dirt or
Oh, so it's
anything.
behind the school?
Well, yeah,
get
or
there?
down where the playground is, there's a flat area on the playground area,
Yeah,
so
but how do you access it? I'm trying to
through the
think.
road, there's a road,
There is?
there is a road. So what would
Down the hill?
yeah, there's
back,
a little
In
hill
the
back.
back, so by the dock, the loading dock, like
Yeah.
that way?
They
Yeah,
go around
and then
that
they
way.
could go
Okay.
around. So there's that would then free up the back part. We'll cordon off where the buses are gonna come through the loop, because we can't have people there when the buses come. So we won't allow anybody to park there all day long, but there should be other parking available.
Oh, good,
So that's something we were working on, last couple of days.
good.
So because I know everybody's worried about the parking,
Yeah.
Does the school or the children too young, does it take advantage of this situation to engage them in how much work the town is going through to make this thing happen at Pembroke, and what you guys
Yeah, I
are doing, and
think,
it's
yeah.
all about voting and what voting means?
Well, I think they
and
do some
it's
things about
for-
what voting means, but I'm not sure they really bring in, the fact that we're making all these
But you know what I
arrangements.
mean?
Yeah, it's
Because
always an
it's right
educational
there, visual.
opportunity, exactly.
Right,
Yeah,
well,
no,
it is
that's
a
a
big
good
part
point.
of
That is a
our
good point.
lives, and we want the kids to know how important it
How
is.
important
And they
it is.
usually hold
Right,
their own
does it?
elections, like, well,
Yeah, they do.
during
They
the
have their own
presidential, they
little
have their own
elections,
little
yeah.
elections, that was cute.
But I wanted you to know that's something that the parking should be a little bit,
I think it'll be
easier.
fine, and it's not gonna be,
I don't know what the turnout will be.
well, I'm sure it'll be good, but it's not like it's a presidential where,
No,
it'll be,
Town meeting.
or a lot of contested elections, there's not much, actually, I heard today there's no contested seats.
Right, no, there's no
No.
contested seats.
Oh, contested seats.
But the poll hours will be open from 8 AM to 8 PM.
that's good that you said that, cause the last
the
time,
last
remember, people thought it
presidential.
was 7.
It was 7 for the presidential election.
Right, so the people last year thought it was 7, so they came early, and it wasn't.
Oh, dear.
What the presidential
Or-
election it was.
All right, then it wasn't them.
You-
People
you may
showed
be
up
thinking of
at
another election.
Yeah,
They-
people showed
It
up at
gets
7.
confusing because sometimes
Right,
it's
so
7 and
it's 8 to
sometimes it's
8.
8. That's
Perfect.
right,
But
yes.
it's
8 to 8 on
Yes.
Monday,
Mhm.
at Pembroke, good,
Yes.
okay. Is that all for safety, that good?
That's it,
Okay.
yes. I don't know, Carol, can you think
That's
of
good.
anything else?
No, I
Yep.
think it's
Okay.
good, yeah.
And did the school building, have they met?
No,
Coming up
coming up, yep,
Tuesday.
Tuesday, and I'm not gonna be there.
Oh, you're not?
I think Pam's the new PD for you guys.
Oh,
that's right, so the
I forget
13th,
that.
Tuesday
I
the
will be there, I
13th,
don't know
okay.
whether I'm gonna be allowed to vote yet or not, but I will be there nonetheless,
We'll,
whether I can or can't.
We are
have
kicking
to
up
be-
into the discussions about, they call it FF&E, which is furnace fixtures
yeah.
and equipment.
Yeah.
So they are talking about colors of lockers and
Oh, I
floors.
love color.
and all
My
that
eyes
stuff,
glaze
it's
over
like,
with that.
oh my god, no, that's a
That's
fun
the
part
fun
for
part.
me, I love the color stuff.
Abiding
Except I have
by
trouble, like, I don't know the difference in this fountain and that fountain, I don't know.
what I would
Following
mention about
Monday.
Pembroke,
Once
and
they
for
do
Pam
that, then
also
I'll be
being the
sworn
rep,
in and then I can vote.
Okay.
I sent an email to Michelle Smith about it, but I was walking my dog up there the other day, and I was just looking at all of the fill that they're put on the existing fields. And I don't know if there's more fill that's gonna be going there or not, but if there is, there's an opportunity to, instead of engineering it, to craft it a little bit more, where you still have it function the way it needs to, but you create more of a hill for the kids to use for games,
Oh, okay.
where they can sled in the winter, they can King of the Hill, whatever, they can invent their own games with it, but right now it's just engineered, and it would take nothing to slightly manipulate it and to craft it to create a really nice play lawn that
Okay.
has a slope to it. So if you bring that to that committee, I don't,
You sent something to Michelle.
I said it to Michelle, but,
Oh, good.
you know.
Okay.
I'll have to-
Okay.
Can you send it to me too?
Sure,
And
yeah,
then, yeah,
if I still have it, yeah,
Be happy to.
absolutely.
thank you.
Okay, CPAC, anything?
No, nothing else.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have some
There's a few little items and-
surplus.
Yep, so Peter put a little something in the orange notes. He has a list of keyboarding, economics, and foreign language books that are obsolete, no longer used. And he'd like them to be declared as surplus. He's trying to clean house over there, so he doesn't have all the things in closets, taking up space.
The chair will entertain a motion to declare the keyboarding, economics, and foreign language textbooks identified by Principal Peter Lucia as surplus to be disposed of by proper protocol as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, PTA, donation to
Donation.
Pembroke?
Yeah. So, yeah, so, used towards the Pembroke students' participation in the Great East Music Festival. I think that's the
Oh,
one that
that was one
Tyler
that they
was talking
came and,
about.
yeah,
Remember, he was saying that PTA was gonna make a
yeah,
donation.
wow, that's a nice
Yeah,
donation.
it's a very nice donation, yeah.
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to accept the $748 from the PTA for the purpose of the Great East Music Festival as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's very generous.
And lastly, this is something we end up doing every year after the with the Kiev, trip, increasing the middle school student activities account for a short period of time to allow for the larger amount of funds. We urge you to allow
Okay.
that.
So the chair will entertain a motion to increase the middle school student activity account fund from $10,000 to $20,000 for the period of May 9th, 2014 until June 9th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I just wanted to mention, Teacher Appreciation Week was this week, and I
Yes.
know
Yes.
they
Glad
had
you brought that up.
parents and
Oh, there was
did a
so
great
much
job.
wonderful food.
Was there
and-
good?
Was
Oh,
there?
it was just amazing. Yeah.
Pearlie
Felt
did it
very
Monday or
appreciated.
Tuesday?
Gosh, I know that different schools,
I
different
thought it was
days.
Tuesday. Middle
I
high
mean,
school was
I've never seen
today.
so many soups, different kinds of soups and salads and
Nice.
desserts, cupcakes, unbelievable. It was just it was just so thoughtful and kind.
Yeah,
Everybody
that is
really,
very nice,
really
and
appreciated
The
it.
PTA does a great job organizing that because it is a
Oh, it
a
can't be
big
easy.
job
Oh, yeah.
to do that, and to the parents that all donate, it's very nice to
Oh,
let the
very,
teachers
very
know how
nice.
appreciative they are.
And they do appreciate it, believe me.
Good. So I hope they have a good week. So at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:35 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, good night.
Good night, everybody.